Second half of the season is upon us. 49ers versus Chargers this weekend. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about OBJ, and we got some other topics as well. Stay tuned. We'll be back. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. It's your boy Jesse, and it's Tuesday, which means I got Suneil with me. What's up, Suneil? How you doing?
Man, living the dream, brother. How are you?
I'm doing good. You're back at home. You're looking snazzy. You're only giving me a half an hour tonight, and so I gotta imagine that you got some plans. You look like you're dressed up for said plans. Give us a little.
No, actually, this was just for you, brother. This was just for you. The button, you know, it's top button gang. We repping Kyle Shanahan today, brother.
Don't do that. There's no need for that.
That's all I do, bro. That's all I do. TBG, baby. Me and Kyle Shanahan started it.
Top button gang. All right, let's jump into it. So we got a short amount of time with you. And then for everybody that's listening, we're going to do some call-ins afterwards. So stay tight after Suneil takes off. But you had some topics that you dropped on Twitter, and I got to get clarification on it because I feel like I know where you're going with it, but I'm not quite positive. So you had thrown out something on Twitter where you had asked about Saleh and McDaniel and their situations when they took over the Dolphins and the Jets and how that compared to the 49ers situation in Kyle Shanahan. Walk me through this.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously Kyle Shanahan's tree is now out there doing their thing, right? Mike McDaniel in his first year, he's 6-3. Saleh in his second year of coaching, he's 6-3, right? So their situations as far as just records are in better situations. And I wanted to just throw it out there for, my Twitter followers and see, what the feedback would come back as far as if you guys felt or if the situations that Saleh inherited, the situations that McDaniels inherited, situations that Kyle Shanahan inherited, are they similar? Did one person have it better than the other? And if there's comparable, type of situations, we could start talking about, clearly these other coaches are having more success sooner than Shanahan did. So then you could start going into, well, what were the choices that they made during drafts? What were the choices they made in the off season and all that kind of stuff to kind of just figure out, who's the better coach, right? Just something on a bye week, throw it out there and see what the people thought.
Well, it got me intrigued. I think if I'm just looking at it, I would say McDaniel's situation is definitely better. I would say it was the best out of the three if I'm ranking them. And then I would say that Saleh and Shanahan's is actually pretty close because Saleh had the number 2 pick when he came to the Jets, not a pretty depleted roster. And Shanahan, when he came to the 49ers, had the number 3 pick, pretty depleted roster. So, I mean, I feel like their situations are pretty dang similar. And to your point, I mean, Saleh, what are they, 6-3 through 9 games? That's impressive.
And you would say maybe in a tougher division right now, as far as the Bills are there. I don't know. I forget how good the Seahawks were when Shanahan took over. I don't know if they were as dominant as the Bills are, but you got the Patriots in that division. Miami's good. So I mean, it's not like they're getting wins against bums. Let's put it that way. But one of the biggest choices, right? That first draft, Saleh didn't go after a defensive end. He went after his quarterback, right? And so I don't know if that is what you'd point to as far as what paid dividends. Clearly, they made a lot of choices in the offseason. They made some trades. They had a lot of draft capital that they utilized, and I think a lot of those moves are paying off. But it was just something to think about. Clearly, we're just talking about regular season. In year 3, Shanahan took the 49ers from a very terrible situation to in the Super Bowl. So these guys are just, they haven't gotten to that point quite yet. But it's just something to think about, man. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I would say I would say that, when I look at Salah's situation, I think I think it is comparable, and I think it's impressive what he's doing. Here's the catch 22 though. Yes, he went and got his quarterback, which is awesome. They are winning with that quarterback, but they're kind of winning in spite of that quarterback right now. I
Right.
do think you always give quarterbacks, really all players deserve until 3 years in before you really figure out exactly what it is that they are. But if he doesn't pan out and he continues to be this player, well, now you swung and miss on said quarterback. That can set your franchise back pretty far, especially if they are, mediocre or above mediocre with him. It's hard to kind of recoup that and go and get another guy. So it is an interesting thing. You got two guys who took completely different tactics when they got in. You got the offensive coach taking the defensive guy. You got the defensive coach taking the quarterback.
Right.
Completely different outlooks in how they built their teams. But overall, I mean, right now, what Salah's doing with the Jets is really,
Sure.
really good. It just is.
And it goes back to, talking about, to me, the success of McDaniel, the success of Saleh are all feathers in the cap for Shanahan, because these are two guys that you have to say were primarily developed by Kyle Shanahan. For them to go out and be able to, take over situations that, I think Miami's situation was a lot better. They were a borderline playoff team when McDaniel took them, but McDaniel went in there, changed the culture. Clearly, those guys are having a lot more fun. A lot of the media stuff that was going on is, dissipated really quickly. The media loves McDaniel, and I think Saleh did the same thing. Change a culture over there with the Jets. You can see, after the win against the Bills, how close that team is and how excited they are. And that was something that Shanahan did here with the 49ers as well. So I know Shanahan gets a lot of hate. I'm a Shannon stan, as you can tell. I'm part of TGB or TBG, sorry, TBG. But I think it's just another feather in the cap that he doesn't get enough credit for, as far as his ability to be a leader of men, his ability to obviously develop these coaches, and they could go out and still have success doing similar things that he did for the 49ers.
Yeah, and I just think that I don't know. Shanahan's like one of those guys that it sounds like I hate Shanahan sometimes, but I really don't. I was so happy when he was hired in 2016. I just expect more from him. I do expect that offensive genius because that's what I thought they were bringing in. And so when they don't produce offensively, it's a little frustrating. But then, like I said, there are things that you have to look into with Shanahan that he's not just an offensive coordinator. He is the head coach, and he's developed really good coaches, and he's developed really good players in the late rounds. They do a good job of development overall throughout the franchise. So for me, those are things he deserves credit for as well. And it's tough because you want him to be a great offensive coach because that's what he was signed up to be, but ultimately you want him to be a good head coach. And more often than not, I mean, he's, when he's really, really good, he's good. And when he's really, really bad, he's bad. It's
Right.
tough. It's hard to figure out exactly what Shanahan is at this point. And we'll figure it out. Time will tell for sure. I gotta imagine they turn the season around and they have a winning season from here on out. But we'll see. It's not like it's gone great thus far. We'll say that. Nine Drink says, is OBJ coming for real? Is it coming real? What? Either way, is he going to be in San Francisco? Well, Nine Drinks. I'm sure you saw the thumbnail and the title.
Hey, great segue.
OBJ to the 49ers. I'll give you my stance on this first because
Sure.
I just gave it on Jack's channel as well, and then we'll let you give yours. But OBJ to me is a no-brainer if he is willing to only be here for the rest of the season. If they only sign him for the rest of this year, no-brainer. You absolutely get this deal done if you can, because he's probably better than Jennings. And at the very least, he's a name that opens things up. You never know what can happen with injuries. You're trying to remain competitive for the rest of the season. If somebody else went down, God forbid, OBJ is a good option. However, rumors as of late have come out that not only is he seeking a multi-year deal, but teams are going to offer him multi-year deals. If that is the case for me, I'm out on OBJ. And the reason that I say that is I don't know what OBJ is at 30 years old, coming off of his second torn ACL. Yes, he's a great name. Yes, he's been a great player in this league, but I can't guarantee coming off the second torn ACL in the same knee, by the way, at 30 years old, that you're going to get a very productive player. So for me, if it's a multi-year deal, I am out on OBJ. If it is just the rest of this year, then I'm 100% in on OBJ being a 49er. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Grant put up something where he listed OBJ, 30 years old, injury history, all this kind of stuff, and was like this perfect candidate for what the 49ers look for. I thought that was a funny tweet that he put up. Me personally, I don't know if it's such a no-brainer to get OBJ, right? Because a lot of the things you listed, but also where have we seen OBJ be successful? With the Rams, Matt Stafford's strong arm. With the Giants, Eli Manning, strong arm. Did he have that great of a career with Baker Mayfield, who's known as not necessarily the strongest arm, more known for his accuracy? I don't know. I don't think he had like great seasons over there with Cleveland. I know there was some injuries there and some chemistry issues and things like that. Is Jimmy the right quarterback to be able to unlock OBJ for half of a season? OBJ is more of a deep threat. We already see how Brandon Ayuk's game had to change to be utilized more for Jimmy G, and he's not doing as many of the deep routes anymore. He's doing more of the intermediate routes and getting his catches through that. Debo's coming back healthy. We have CMC, who's being utilized in the pass game quite a bit. Sometimes, too much is too much, right? And I think I would much rather focus my energy in that whatever additional money they would have to pay towards OBJ to interior defensive line. And to me, that's more of a need. That's something that, I think that can be the Achilles heel for this 49ers making their push moving forward to be competitive, not just to make the playoffs, but be competitive in the playoffs. If Armstead isn't healthy the second half of the season, that's something that's extremely important. And, right there with Rocky Mountain Razorback said out, if it's a choice, and I don't know how the financials work, maybe there's a way they could get both. But if I have to choose between OBJ and Ndamukong Suh, I'm taking Suh. I think that he makes more of an impact on the 49ers to help them win this year than OBJ will. OBJ, I think, is the sexier pick because of the name recognition, and obviously it's another weapon in this offense that's probably going to look very good moving forward. But I would much rather utilize that capital towards an interior defensive lineman like Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, I mean, let me be clear. No doubt. If it's between Suh and OBJ, I'm definitely taking Suh because I agree with you. I will say this. There was some worry from me on Armstead because the way the 49ers were talking about Eric Armstead was a lot like they talked about Dee Ford when he was injured. A lot of, well, we don't know. And just given generalities, it's a leg injury and we don't know when he'll be back. He's week to week. And like we've heard this before with Dee Ford in his back. He was week to week and then he went year to year and then was done. So that was a little bit concerning. And then to top it off, they were in on Daron Payne, which I loved, by the way. But they were in on Daron Payne and another defensive tackle. And so I started to think, okay, well, if you're going after a superstar defensive tackle, you're not trying to replace Kinlaw with that. You're trying to replace Eric Armstead with that, in my opinion. So then I started to really worry. I'm like, oh my gosh, not only are they talking about the injury in a mysterious way, they've gone after these superstar defensive tackles. Is Eric Armstead's season done? Good news is there was an interview with Eric recently where he talked about his injury. It was a hairline fracture in his ankle. He should be back soon, actually. I would imagine after the Arizona game. So in 3 weeks, he'll be back, which is great. I mean, bone injuries, they suck because they take a long time to heal, but that's not really major long-term thing if you manage it properly the first time around. It sounds like the 49ers have. And by the way, it's going to give his plantar fasciitis on his other foot time to heal. So that's the good news, is that Eric Armstead should be back. And when he's back, that's not something that should linger by any means.
Yeah, but you always worry about foot injuries with big dudes. That's
sure.
just, like they don't necessarily linger because that is an injury that could heal, but he continuously has foot issues, whether it's the plantar fasciitis, now a hairline fracture. Like, that's just something to be wary about, especially, he's getting older. He's a big guy, obviously, and we've seen how much of an impact him not being there actually is. So, like I said, I know OBJ in a vacuum sounds great, but in the grander scheme of things, you have to realize what the team needs. It isn't an unlimited cap, so resources are scarce and limited. I think both of them would be like a veteran min type contract for this year, I would much rather use my veteran min contract on an interior defensive lineman than another wide receiver. And hey, if we need to throw something to another wide receiver, why not dust off Danny Gray and give him some reps, see if he could run down and be a speedster if they need somebody that they already have on the roster.
Yeah, here's the thing with Danny Gray, and I started to figure out why I think he's not playing. I could be completely off on this, but I really paid attention to not only his lack of blocking, but Ray's blocking skills. Ray is actually a really good blocker, a very willing blocker, and a very good blocker. Danny Gray, at least in the little bit that he's been on the field, has been an atrocious blocker. He has not been a good blocker. I think that is factoring in as much as anything as to why he's not getting any burn, because that is one thing that is a requirement. If you are going to play wide receiver on this team, you have to be able to block. You have to be willing to block. He seems like neither. So right now, not necessarily going to work out for him his rookie year until he can figure that out, is my guess.
But is OBJ a willing blocker? I don't know.
OBJ is a willing blocker, yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't. Yeah. I know he's not. I know in most of his teams, I would think he was not known for being, blocker.
I'm not going to say he's a great blocker by any means, but in Cleveland, you're required same style offense, and then also in LA, you're required to be a blocker as well. So you do have to block some. You have to be willing to get dirty. He's willing to at least do that. He's not. I wouldn't say he's like an A+ blocker. He's not Ayuk.
Yeah.
Ayuk's a hell of a blocker now. That's
starting to love it.
He does love it. He's an absolute dog when it comes to blocking. Not only is he an A+ route runner right now, he's got a hell of a catch radius, and he's not only a willing blocker, but a very, very good blocker. Brandon Ayuk's a stud. I love Brandon Ayuk. Absolutely love him. G-Code Travels Vlog. Point of view. That's a long name. OBJ signing. Does that mean that the 49ers are trust Jimmy G's arm in QB decision making?
I think it means more just, I don't think it has anything to do with Jimmy. I think it has more to do with adding another offensive weapon to the 49ers. They're obviously been working out a lot of receivers, to add guys for depth reasons. Jennings being injured, they do have room for another third option. Ray is good, but I mean, obviously OBJ would probably be an upgrade if he's anything close to, 100%. I would say even maybe 80% of OBJ is probably an upgrade over Ray. But yeah, like I said, I would have to see what the ramifications of bringing in OBJ is. Like, if you could get OBJ and an interior defensive lineman, I'm all for it. But if it's one or the other, I'm definitely going interior defensive lineman.
Yeah, G-Code, to answer the question, I think similarly to Ayuk that OBJ is just a separator. I think when he's at his best, he's also a bit of a route technician and can get open. So I think just getting open on the outside is what he would be brought in to do. I'd imagine that Debo, I think he might even move to the slot, or I don't know. I mean, between him, Ayuk, and Debo, I really think all three could play any of the positions. So I think it causes a lot of confusion for the defense. I think he can get open regardless of what the route is. We'll see. One thing I will say about Jimmy is that, shoot, man, if he's trusting Christian McCaffrey the way he did last Sunday, then his decision making really should improve a ton, because knowing that he doesn't have to rush through anything or make any questionable throws because he has that check down guy that he can trust in. If he continues to do that, I would think that the decision making would look a lot better with a guy like Christian McCaffrey. And you wouldn't necessarily even need to get OBJ to have that decision making uptick. I think that player might already be here. Mm-hmm. Scotty B says the 49ers are only in the conversation to drive up the price. That is a possibility. If I had to bet personally, I would say, well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Josh Allen. I don't know how serious that injury is, assuming that that's only, a limited injury that maybe keeps him out a week or two type of thing. I would say OBJ either ends up with the Bills or the Ravens. I was watching that Ravens game last night, and I'm thinking to myself, why would OBJ not just go there? They don't have a number one wide receiver. They need a number one wide receiver. OBJ may not be that at this point in his career, but you talk about really wanting to have a prove-it deal if you don't get a multi-year deal. That's where I would want to go. Go there. And not only that, but you got a quarterback that's going to buy you time to make throws. I think that's the spot, or Buffalo. That's me if I'm OBJ. We'll see what ends up happening. I think Dallas is a little bit in play. The 49ers, obviously, but I would put my money in on Buffalo and the Ravens personally.
These type of receivers always end up with Tom Brady in Tampa, so that's
oh no, please no more of that. My gosh. Oh my gosh. All right. We've only got about 9 minutes left with you before we switch it over to the call-in show. So let's go through the remainder of the schedule rapid fire here and see if we can come to a consensus of what we think the 49ers are going to do here in the second half. So we know that they have the Chargers coming up. That is a Sunday night football game at home. The Chargers are pretty depleted. The Chargers actually, to me, remind me a lot of what the 49ers were facing when they went to Atlanta. The Chargers are hurting for certain.
Right.
So this is a home game. This is coming off of a bye. Herbert scares the living piss out of me. I'm not going to lie, but I don't think he has enough around him right now with all these injuries. I think the 49ers get this one done on Sunday. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's a dub. The one thing to be aware of is they do have an extremely dynamic running back. So if the rushing attack or the rushing defense can't hold up, Austin Eckler is a game changer that could keep this game close if the 49ers don't have a solution there for him. But I, like you, do believe that this defense isn't as good as they were supposed to be. And I think this offense, the 49ers offense, will be able to score enough points for it to be a W.
Well, and I'll say this as well. Everybody talks about the 49ers and how they should be able to run the ball on the Chargers, which I agree with. But without Eric Armstead, I think the Chargers are going to be able to run the ball on them as well. And Eckler's a hell of a player. So, I'm with you on that one. Okay. Then after that, they go play the Cardinals Monday Night Football. That's the Mexico City game, if I'm not mistaken. Technically, it's a road game. Really, it'll probably be a 49er crowd. So, Cardinals look terrible, but the Cardinals do look terrible until they play the 49ers in years past. So, who knows what's going to happen there? I do also think they win this game. What do you think?
I think not only can they win this game, but they can also be the nail in the coffin for Cliff Kingsbury as a coach for the Cardinals. I know he just signed an extension and all that kind of stuff, but the 49ers have done work to the Carolina Panthers.
I was going to say,
this is another opportunity that I think, a big national televised game, Mexico City, all that kind of stuff. The 49ers do have the ability to make this not a close game. Especially, look, that's going to be Verrett with the second game back. Possibly, we get to see how healthy he is, with that type of secondary and the pass rush coming back. It could be a tough outing for Arizona. So, it could be not. I think it's going to be a dub, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's Cliff Kingsbury's last game as a coach.
That would be crazy. You get two coaches fired in one season. That's a bold prediction right there. I like that one for sure. Hopefully you still feel the same going into that game here coming up, because I want to talk about that next week as well. I want to remind the people. Okay, so we have them on a 3-game winning streak, which is fantastic. Starting 2-0 in the second half. Then they go home and they play the New Orleans Saints, who may or may not be without Kamara because he's starting to have this stuff come up with what happened in the offseason and, smoke starting to get around him. So either way, 49ers are at home against, quite frankly, an outmatched Saints team. I mean, this is a Saints team that's not very healthy. They are playing with their backup quarterback as well. They're not a very good team right now. I think this should be an easy win for the 49ers. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a W as well.
I think this one, Eric Armstead comes back as well, which is very, very helpful.
Perfect.
Okay, this is where it gets interesting. Mike McDaniel and 49ers South Beach travel all the way to the West Coast to come play the real 49ers.
Uh-huh.
Who wins this game?
So this one is tough for me because there's a lot of revenge on the Miami Dolphins, right? Their whole running back core with Mostert and Jeff Wilson being coming back to the 49ers and the 49ers letting both of them go out there. I actually think the 49ers lose this game, and I think it's because they're not going to have an answer for Tyreek. I think that's going to be the deciding factor. Yeah, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout by any chance. I think it'll be a competitive game, but I can't just have them go win out. But this is one of the teams that I think could be a L, so I'm going to put an L for the 49ers on this one.
All right. I'm actually picking the 49ers to win this game. I think the 49ers can get it done. It's like the big brother, little brother thing, right? Mike McDaniel is the little brother to Shanahan. Shanahan seems to go up against his ex-coaches and really fares very well in those games. It's almost like the master hasn't quite given away all of his tricks. He gives them most of it, but there's always something he keeps in the back pocket for when they come to town. I'm actually picking the 49ers to win this game, which now I'm starting to rethink the second half of the season because I'm starting out with 4 straight wins to start this thing out. However, the next week they have the Bucs coming into town, and I just talked about student, teacher, big brother, little brother. 49ers lose to the Buccaneers is my opinion. I think Tom Brady and the Buccaneers figure out a way to leave San Francisco or Santa Clara with a win. I think it's a homecoming type game for Tom Brady. He's going against his former backup quarterback. I think they're going to be the more desperate team, which is important because I think desperate teams usually win when these matchups happen. When you have a desperate team that's really fighting to make the playoffs and you have a team that's probably going to make the playoffs, they're not quite as desperate coming off of a win streak. I think these are the type of games that the desperate team wins. I look at the Buccaneers. I think that is where the 49ers get their first loss of the second half of the season. What about you?
I don't think this game is competitive. I think the 49ers blow out Tampa. Tampa looked terrible against the Rams, and the Rams were not ever competition for the 49ers. The Tampa Bay's running game isn't where it used to be. Their defense isn't as good as it needs to be, and the 49ers have way too many weapons. I know you're big on Tom Brady can make every single throw, and he had that comeback win against the Rams, but 49ers aren't the Rams. I don't think Tampa Bay is the team that they used to be 2 years ago.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I definitely don't think they're the team they used to be.
But that was cute with all the desperation and all that kind of stuff. That was really cute. Like, we're not talking football anymore. We're talking feelings. I feel like they're going to just want it more.
Listen, history tells us desperate teams do win in desperate situations. I'm telling you, desperate teams win.
Not when they're outmatched, bro. It's not when they're outmatched. Come on.
All right. 49ers versus the Seahawks. This is in Seattle. I believe this is a Thursday night game, if I'm not mistaken.
And most likely for the division.
Yes.
This game will probably be for the division, which makes it that much more important. I want to say the 49ers win this one, but this is to be honest, Miami and I would say Seattle is going to be more difficult for them with the way they're playing right now and the confidence that Geno has, and especially the running back now. Walker wasn't there when they beat him earlier in the season, so I think this is going to be a tough challenge for the 49ers. It'll be a very competitive match, but I think the 49ers win this division, and I think that they'll do that through beating the Seahawks.
Interesting. I think they still might win the division. I don't think they're winning this game. Going to Seattle is always very, very tough for the 49ers, especially on Thursday night. That crowd's going to be insane. It's probably going to be raining. We know Jimmy's not the best in the rain. I think the 49ers are the better team, but division games are always tough. You see it across the league every single week. Every single week. You got one. Buffalo and Jets are a perfect example. Oh, Buffalo's going to cream the Jets. Well, not so fast. Division games are always the monkey wrench that you just don't see coming. I do not think that the 49ers go undefeated in the division. I do think they beat the Cardinals both games. So I got to have them losing somewhere against a division foe, and I'm going to take that loss against Seattle on Thursday Night Football, which is unfortunate. However, they got a get-right game coming back home to play the Washington Commanders. How do you have this one going?
Easy dub.
I agree. Easy dub. Okay. Then they go on the road for a January 1st game. Hopefully they don't do a lot of partying the night before. Bringing in the new year, they are in Vegas to play the atrocious Las Vegas Raiders. Oh my gosh, what a dumpster fire they are. This should be a dub, right?
Yeah, I think it's a dub, and I think they do the Deion Sanders lock everybody down. You can't go out. Nobody's going out. Nobody's going out.
Probably a really, really good idea. Okay, let's finish it off. Cardinals, 49ers to finish the season in Santa Clara. Who wins this game?
Yeah, I think the 49ers go. They only dropped the one game to Miami the second half of the season. So I think they go 8-1.
This homer.
I think they finish off 12-5. Look, I told you the 49ers put up big points against these teams. And Miami is the only team that isn't allowing out of I think 7 out of the 9 games I talked about are bottom 10 in defenses. That's been the only Achilles heel for why the 49ers have lost is because they can't score enough points. So I don't think that's going to be an issue in the second half of the season. So I think they go 8-1. I think they finish off 12-5, and I think they are, hopefully getting a home field game in the playoffs.
Man, here's the thing: is I had them going 7-2 and losing to Seattle, but that still might be enough to win the division because if they finish tied, they were 1-1 against each other, and then it comes down to division record, and the 49ers only lost the one game. So I think ultimately they could end up winning the division by default and having the tiebreaker. But man, you talked about my feelings and emotions with the Buccaneers game. You just had them losing one freaking game in the second half when they're
based off of facts. 7 out of 9 offense is going to be rolling.
Who's the other one? You said 7 and 9.
I think Saints? It's Saints.
Yeah, I was going to say Saints have a pretty good defense. That makes sense.
No, or maybe it's the Bucks. One of those two teams.
Okay.
But they're still bottom. But they're still bottom 15. They just weren't bottom 10. I think only the Miami Dolphins were somewhere around there, and they might even be bottom. I don't know. But 7 out of the 9 games, I forget which were the 2, but the 2 that were in there were still bottom half of the league. They just weren't bottom 10.
Okay, fair enough. All right, listen, Suneil, thank you so much for giving us your time. We went 5 minutes over. You go have fun at the nightclub or whatever you got to do. We'll see you next Tuesday, all right?
Later, brother.
Later. All right, let me switch this overlay real quick. Come on. Where are we at? Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, I put the link in the chat. We haven't done this in a while. I haven't taken call-ins in quite some time. And I definitely owe you guys some time to call in and just talk 49er football, especially coming out of a bye week. How you feeling about the second half? There's a lot going on. We talked about the OBJ potential trade. We talked about the second half schedule. I've put out some recent videos on the channel, though, that talk about Tom Brady potentially becoming a 49er and what that would look like, what that would mean for Trey Lance. I put out a video talking about how there's a lot of hate for Trey Lance lately. I know a lot of people commented and said, oh, that's not true. This is clickbait, whatever. Spend some time on social media. There's a lot of people, and there's some Twitter fam in here that I see, Mariah, Chris, you guys can back me up. There's a lot of people that are out on Trey Lance after the way that Justin Fields played, after the way that Tom Brady played, and then after Miami made the trades that they made with the 49ers picks. There's a lot of people that are out on Trey Lance, and I hate it. I hate to see it. But that's just the reality. And listen, I'm a 49er content creator, so I'm going to talk about all of those things every single time. So that's the way it is. That being said, I do have Eric waiting, and then I have Jag waiting as well. I'm going to bring in Jag real quick. What's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good, Jesse. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, brother.
Yeah. So first on that OBJ, I don't know. I'm not really too sure on that because I don't know when is he supposed to come back from his injury and all that.
They're saying he's supposed to be cleared by like the end of this week. Like he'll be ready to go in like a week or two.
Would you get him
for this year? If it's here's the thing. So if it's a 1-year deal with OBJ, no brainer, 100% taking him. But what I'm hearing is he potentially wants a multi-year deal, and I'm not willing to give him that. So no, I personally, if it's a multi-year deal, would say no. If it's a 1-year deal, I'm 100% on board.
Yeah, I could go for that. I just wanted to talk on some positives. Of course, to me, the number one thing, I'm a trench guy. I believe you win and lose in the trenches, offensive and defensive line. That's just the way I think. Because you can have CMC, you can have Ayuk, you can have Debo, but if the offensive line is not working and it's not doing their job, we're not going to win. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. That's the history. That's the history of the NFL. So I really believe that. And the offensive line has been a very pleasant surprise. Banks has just played. I think he's an all-pro right now, playing for basically his rookie year. And of course Burford too, and Brendel. I mean, yeah, Brendel needs to pick it up a little bit more, but that's what we have. So that's a bright spot for me, and I just think they have to work on the penalties. A lot of times maybe it's not the amount of penalties, but it's when the penalties occur. You have a big play and then it comes back, and now you're third down and 15. And things like that. But other than that, I mean, I think the Trey thing about what you're talking about, that people are out on Trey. How can you be out on Trey if you haven't even seen him? You have to give him some time. You have to give him the next year and possibly the following year. That's my opinion. What do you think about that?
I'm with you 100%, brother. I really am, because here's the way that I see it. I always say that players deserve 3 years of playing before we figure out who they are. You see it all across the league, especially with these quarterbacks, that year 3 is a breakout year. Trey Lance is a little bit different because unfortunately he didn't play year 1. Year 2, he gets injured. He doesn't play a lot. I don't think that he's afforded the same amount of time. Unfortunately, it's not his fault, but I think he deserves 2 full years of playing. So to me, if they give him next year and the year after, then you know what he is. You can make your decision based off of that. But that's what I think Trey Lance deserves. For me, anybody that's out on him after 4 games, I just respectfully, unless that was if that was your position going into it, that you didn't think Trey Lance was any good and you're just sticking by your position, totally fine. But if you were on the fence or you did believe in Trey Lance and all of a sudden you're out on him based off of what you're seeing around the league, respectfully, you don't know ball. Because saying a player after 4 games is a bust is I mean, that's just an asinine thing to say. None of us know. None of us know is what I'm saying. And as long as we can operate on the unknown, then I'm okay with that. But there's a lot of people that have made their decision that he's a bust. He's not any good. And a lot of people that didn't have that opinion of him coming into the league, people that thought he was going to be good. And now all of a sudden he's a bust off of 4 games. Like, well, I'm sorry. Like, respectfully, I'm not talking football with somebody like that. I'm just not.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, of course, that like you said, that we don't know. We're not in the building. We're not Kyle Shanahan. We're not the coaches. We don't see what is going on there. How can we say that about any player, like you said, if we're not there? We're not there. We're not. It's like the Jimmy G thing. I'm just gonna go real quick on the Jimmy G thing. People say, well, he's always throws interceptions. Yeah, he does. We know what Jimmy is, but for whatever reason, the players in that locker room, they believe in him. They fight for him. They play good for him. And there's a reason. We're not there, right? We're not there. There's a reason why that happens. So with Trey, yeah, I think would you compare Trey to well, kind of what I think Kyle Shanahan might be thinking is like McNabb, because McNabb, when he came into the league, he was he was scrambling around, but he was a pretty good pocket passer, but he turned into a better pocket passer in the NFL under Reed, and then he would run only when he had to. Would you say that's a fair comparison, or no, or you think that's
Yeah,
off?
I'm actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to pull you though, so that I can get on to Eric
Okay,
and then Roscoe, just because we're
all
at
right,
that 5 minutes, and I want to keep it fair for everybody. But
okay,
yes, I'll answer the question. I think McNabb, I think is a fair thought, right? And what McNabb became. I think he's a more natural thrower than McNabb. I really do. I think McNabb at times, certainly, even later in his career, didn't look comfortable throwing the ball. He always had that. I always remember McNabb with that, like, front end of that ball was always dying on him, always diving. But he got the job done. He certainly got the job done. I think Air McNair is probably a little bit kind of more up the alley that I'm thinking of, because McNair was a very good thrower of the football. Not early on. He had, some things that he had to work through, but overall, he ended up being a really good thrower of the football. He won an MVP in this league. So I think McNair is probably in line as well. But either way, I see where you're going with that. All right, we're going to go to Eric. Actually, before I go to Eric, I want to answer the question. You guys were talking about linebackers. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I swear that Greenlaw is signed through next year. I think he signed an extension. I'm pretty sure. So Aziz is the guy that they got to look to replace, just to clarify some things for you guys. What's up, Eric? Eric going once.
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it's going good, brother. How are you?
Thanks for having me on. I'm doing okay. I honestly think, and you've heard me say this before, but I honestly think that this whole thing with Trey Lance, I mean, like, this is the perfect offense with Christian McCaffrey, with Debo, and all these things, and everything is there for him to succeed. He just doesn't have the in my opinion, he just doesn't have like the locker room nor the support, and I think that this is why I put a lot of this blame in the shoulders, a lot of pressure on Shanahan, because he's the one who kind of like made this happen. I would have been all for just kicking Jimmy out, because I mean, like, there was already a division, and I'm like saying, well, you know what? You give this kid a chance. He's actually, you see Donovan McNabb or Stephen McNair. I think he can be Mahomes on steroids, but he just needs the proper coaching. He needs, and Shanahan and everyone else is not giving him that.
Listen, the Mahomes on steroids thing, that would be crazy. I'm not going to say he can't be that. Mahomes is phenomenal. All right. So I'm not going to put those expectations on him. However,
Well,
as far as why
maybe not, but just like a stronger version of Mahomes.
I see.
because he's
No, I
got
see where you're going with that.
smarts. Lance,
Yeah, yeah. I see. I
yeah,
see where you're going with it. I do think that there's some coaching issues that go into this. This is where I question Kyle Shanahan and his willingness and ableness to develop a young
yeah.
quarterback because he hasn't quite done it yet. He took a similar approach with Trey Lance as to what he did with RG3, which didn't work. He got both of them injured. And now we'll see what happens with Trey Lance. Luckily for Trey Lance,
It
his injury isn't as catastrophic.
That's true, and it kind of reminds me of something that I saw like in the beginning of his rookie year or something, or like just right after he got drafted. So this is like 1 or 2 years ago, and this was with Grant and his dad. He Grant asked about how Lance tends to miss high, and Kyle Shanahan says, "Oh, we don't worry about mechanics." To me, that just if that does not scream coaching issues, I don't know what the heck that is. Then he basically outright told Grant, "I don't know how to coach the kid. I know I have a good scheme. I know how to do. I have a good playbook, but I don't know how to. I don't know f all about mechanics and the process."
Yeah, I
That's
think
where
that
that's
there's
actually where Jim other or other it doesn't even need to be Harbaugh, just someone who knows the position, knows how to teach Trey that stuff. He just needs to work on his mechanics, and thus far, he shows a lot of promise. It's just consistency.
yeah, I'll say this. The thing is, this is where I think a lot of misconception comes in. When you're in the league and you are on the team, QB coaches and offensive coordinators, they are not going to really run through a lot of mechanics. Now, one position group that I would say goes against that is defensive backs. I think there's a lot of techniques that are taught to defensive backs throughout the league on a regular basis. Eric Crocker could probably answer this question better, but that's the feeling I get. That being said, quarterback, they just don't really do it. Now, I will say this. They did specifically, let's not forget that Quincy Avery was the quarterback coach for Trey Lance. This offseason, Kyle Shanahan specifically sent him to 3D QB to go work with Adam Dadow and all those guys that had worked with Tom Brady all those years. And so there is something that they want him to do specifically. And they feel like this group of coaches can deliver that in the offseason. And my assumption and what I'm hearing is more Dadow next year, 3D QB, and also maybe a little bit of Jordan Palmer potentially in his future. So they do want him to work on things. They are going to put him in the right position to do that, but they're not going to do that whenever you are on the team, unfortunately.
What about Tom House? Just
He's
one
with
last question
3D
before
QB.
you
So
kick me.
Adam Dadow is his pupil basically. House taught Dadow.
Oh, okay.
Dadow teaches, Trey Lance and all these other guys. So yeah, it's all the same thing over there. Yep.
Okay. Well,
So
I just know that Lance he will win the Niners a Super Bowl. Mark my words.
hey,
He's a Super
listen,
Bowl caliber quarterback. He really.
I'm with
All
it.
right.
I'm
Thanks
with
for
it,
having
brother.
me
I
on.
hope that he does. Eric, thank you. You're always like first one to comment on the videos. I love it. If I put out a video and you're not the first one to comment, I think something's wrong. So I appreciate you, Eric, for calling in. You have a blessed night, man. We'll talk soon. All right. Bringing in Mr. Roscoe's, the king of intros, the king of overlays. If you watch a 49ers show and it's got a dope overlay and it's got a dope intro, 99% chance Mr. Roscoe's made it. The only reason I say 99% is because I got a dope intro and I got a dope overlay and I made that one. But other than that, it's always Mr. Roscoe that's bringing it home. What's up, man? How you doing? Roscoe going once. Roscoe going twice. No. Hey. All right, Roscoe. I don't know what's going on, man. I think StreamYard bit you. You'll probably be back in. But Nick from Nick, my guy Nick, with nothing but Niners, kind of. I don't know what's going on there, but either way, just saying what's up, homie. Nick, I love you, man. It's been a while since we have chopped it up. I hope you are doing fantastic. And Jag comes in, says, I appreciate you giving the faithful time to chat. Yeah, absolutely. Jamal or Nick, I'm going to put the link in. I would love for you guys to call in as well. I just threw out the link. Jamal, if you have a minute, if Nick, you have a minute, I would love to. Reason people can't talk to you. It's not the guest, Jesse. It's you. You're the reason people can't talk to you right now. Sorry. That's funny. I just sent it, Chris. Should be right there for you, man. StreamYard's weird, man. I don't like when these people wait in the background for a while. Sometimes it just doesn't come through. What up, Roscoe?
What's up, Jesse?
Bro, I gave you like the best intro ever, and then you weren't even there to like receive it.
I was listening on my other phone. So thank you, Jesse. I haven't called in a while. I love your show, bro. It's so good, man. Like a lot of content creators can learn from you because I'm not gonna be mean, but there's a lot of people who don't need to be doing this, but you clearly do, and they need to watch you because you do a good job, bro. And I like the timer. It's so dope, man, having the timer. What's up, Jamal? My guy Jamal. Jamal be mean to me, bro. He don't be talking to me. But anyways, I came on here once because I'm a block Suneil for saying that we're gonna lose to the Dolphins.
But that was the only loss he gave us.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Well, that's the worst one to give us that loss. Oh, if, of all losses, that's the one I don't want. I'd rather lose to Brady. I actually rather lose to the Bucks.
Of course you would. You're a Tom Brady stan.
Yeah, but this Tom Brady stan don't want Tom Brady on the Niners next year, though.
That's true. That's very true.
I want Trey Lance. I want Trey Lance to play. I don't understand. Oh God, I really can't. This fan base is wishy-washy. This fan base is so annoying right now. I can't believe that we just turn on Trey because we want Tom Brady, and I love Tom Brady, but I don't want a 46-year-old Tom Brady on my football team. No way.
This is your favorite quarterback of all time, right? Like, let's be clear.
Bro, listen, I watch every single one of his games. I don't miss Tom Brady games for the most part. I mean, some things you just miss some things sometimes. But no, Tom Brady's, I literally go back and watch his highlights all the time. It's the GOAT, man. I've been arguing he was the GOAT after he won like 4 Super Bowls. I've went against Niner fans so many times because, we got casuals in here and homers, and they can't admit the truth. You still got people who believe he's not the GOAT, even though he got 7 Super Bowls more than every franchise. So, yeah, that's me. I don't want him on my team, though. Back in 2020, yes. Next year, no, bro. Like, Jesse, can you explain how would that look on Kyle Shanahan? And 2, how would that look on Trey Lance? And I'm going to leave, and I'm going to let you explain it, all right?
All right, sounds good.
All right, thank you, Jesse.
Later. Yeah, to me, Chris, I think that's where I say it doesn't happen, because Kyle Shanahan, if he truly went out and got his guy, which I believe that he did, I believe that he was all in on Trey Lance. That was his quarterback. You can't sell me on the fact that he was not going to go all in and then not take his guy. So I believe that Trey Lance was his guy. So with that being the groundwork here to this conversation, it would look really bad on him if he chose Jimmy Garoppolo to start over him year 1. He gets injured in year 2 on his play call, by the way. And then in year 3 is like, Tom Brady was only marginally better than Jimmy Garoppolo, who we thought could get better in 2019. And we passed up on him, and he went and won a Super Bowl. And now, 3 years later, he's way better than Trey Lance. We're not even going to start Trey Lance. The project's over. We're going Tom Brady. That's an issue. And I believe that Kyle Shanahan has a big enough ego to where he wouldn't do that. But then again, the flip side is they're out from under every single one of those picks. After 2023, so if you get Tom Brady for 2023, all those picks that you spent on Trey Lance, all those picks that you traded to get Trey Lance, they're all done. You're out from under that. 2024 is a clean slate. You are starting completely over, which gives them the autonomy to do that. Now, what does that mean for Trey Lance? Well, I don't think that tells us anything about Trey Lance, because you're asking the greatest quarterback of all time to come be your quarterback. A guy who I don't believe is washed. So I don't think that says anything bad about Trey Lance. However, if I'm Trey Lance and I'm Trey Lance's agent, I want out of San Francisco. I'm sorry. I'm going to do it professionally, the way that I've always been. He's always been a professional. He's always been a good teammate, all those things. He's a leader. But behind the scenes, I'm asking for a trade. And I want out. And I know I can't control my destiny on where I go, all those things. That may be fine. But I need to develop and I need to play football. So for me, that's what I would do if I'm Trey Lance. I gotta imagine that's the route that he would take. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe he is willing to sit behind Tom Brady and learn for a year. I don't know. But I think ultimately the 49ers are also smart enough to do like what they did with Jimmy Garoppolo, where they went to Trey Lance and made sure he was cool with Jimmy Garoppolo coming back. I gotta imagine that they go get a pulse check and say, hey, we're thinking about bringing in Tom Brady. Where's your mind at? And listening to him talk going into this offseason, where he said that the most growth he made was when he started games in 2021. And then that he expected to be the starting quarterback going into this season. I've got to imagine that his mentality is no different. And that's why I think he would request a trade. That's me personally. 49ers Faithful says, we don't need more weapons. We don't need more weapons, but more weapons aren't necessarily a bad thing. If you weren't here earlier, 49er Faithful, I appreciate you tapping in. What I said about OBJ is if it's a 1-year deal, rest of this year, I'm 100% doing it. If it is a multi-year deal, which it sounds like he might be requesting, I'm not doing that because I don't know what OBJ is at 30 years old, coming off of a second ACL injury, which I believe is in the same ACL. I'm personally foregoing that. That's just me. So, I mean, I don't know how else to talk about it, Lito. Like, what else am I supposed to do? The whole thing's a speculation. So if I get asked a direct question on a speculation, I kind of got to answer in speculation, right? Like, I don't know anything for fact. Nobody knows anything for fact. But when I'm asked a direct question, I got to answer it the best way that I can. And I got to believe that that's the way that it would play out. I'm sorry. But the whole question was a hypothetical. So my answer is going to be a hypothetical. I don't know what to tell you. Trey has not proven a thing yet. I agree. And he's got to be able to play. He's not going to prove a thing by sitting on the bench holding clipboards. That's not how you prove anything in the NFL. You have to be able to play. And again, you know, there's a lot of people that are down on Trey, but the bottom line is this: quarterbacks develop by playing football. I know it's a crazy concept, but he deserves that. He deserves a chance to get to play. And if he's not going to get it here in San Francisco, he has to seek it somewhere. And again, yes, it's speculation. But if you watch the offseason interview that he did with Rob Stats Guerrera after the season was over, after the Super Bowl had been played, and the way that he talked with an assertiveness and a seriousness about being the starting quarterback for this team, and that was his expectations, and how Rob even tried to set him up by saying, hey, well, you know, I'm sure you learned a lot by not playing last year and sitting behind Jimmy. And he goes, yeah, actually, I learned more in the games that I played. The games that I developed the most, or where I got the most development, is when I was the starter. I expect to be the starter going into 2021 or 2022. Why would that kid all of a sudden be like, yeah, no, I'm good. Just sit me another year. He's not going to be. I'm sorry. It's just not reality. It's not. Unless he's all of a sudden turned into some passive guy that doesn't believe in himself, which I highly doubt. I would be shocked if he didn't request a trade in that scenario. So again, I personally don't think that Tom Brady ends up here. I don't even know if Tom Brady wants to play next year. If he does want to play next year, I would imagine San Francisco could be a possible destination he would look at. But I also think the Raiders would be a high up on his list because he's got his former offensive coordinator there, assuming he doesn't get fired. I would assume that even a reunion with the Patriots might be a possibility, or going to the Titans and playing with a former coach there. I think there are other teams that he may also want to go to. And then I think the 49ers, even if Tom Brady's like, yes, I want to be a 49er, they turned him down once. Chances are they turn him down again. It's all hypothetical. So my answers are hypothetical. Flav says Trey has had a year to show he was the guy in practice. I disagree with that, but go, okay. Ultimately, they couldn't move on from Jimmy. Okay. I've heard Trey is good. Haven't seen it. Jimmy being here still means the Niners likely haven't either. No, it doesn't. Listen, nobody in the league wanted Jimmy Garoppolo. Nobody was willing to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, Flav. And they needed a backup quarterback. It was the wrong move. It was the wrong move for Trey. It was the right move for the team, wrong move for Trey. Obviously, now that Trey's injured, it's great to have Jimmy Garoppolo, but it was the wrong move for developing Trey Lance. When you bring in a new quarterback and you hand him the keys, you get rid of the previous quarterback. All teams do it, and the reason they do it is because they know it can split the locker room. Well, guess what? It sounds like it kind of split the locker room a little bit. The only situation that I can think of that didn't happen was way back when with the Cincinnati Bengals. You had Carson Palmer. You had John Kitna. They kept John Kitna. Well, Palmer was a good soldier. He played. He was the starter. He was never pulled, anything like that. And he talked up a good game about how much he liked Kitna being there and all these other things. Well, years later, when he was asked about it, he said, yeah, I wish they would have gotten rid of Kitna. That was a really awkward situation. I got to imagine Trey's thinking the same thing. Listen, you don't prove anything in practice. Nobody knows who you are in practice. I don't know if you're a hooper, Flav, but I was before I got crappy ankles and crappy knees. If I pulled up to a gym and had open run, there's a lot of people that I saw that weren't good when we were just shooting around. And then all of a sudden we hit the court and they were really good, or vice versa. I've seen a lot of practice warriors, guys that were really good in practice. I'm like, damn, I'm picking him up. I got next. I'm picking that dude up. He looks legit. And then he's trash. So at the end of the day, you don't know anything off practice. Yes, you can get better in practice, but practice is practice, especially in the off season. Practice is where you're supposed to make mistakes so that you don't make those mistakes in the season. If you think that a player should show based off of his skill set that he should be the guy in just the off season, I think that's I think that I just don't agree with that take. I'll just leave it at that. I appreciate you, Flav, and I always like talking with you, but man, I couldn't be more opposite with you on this one. 49ers first takes. What's up, Aaron? He says the biggest opponent going forward for the 49ers is the 49ers. Okay. As far as OBJ, why not? As long as they don't overpay him. Listen, I'm with you. If it's a 1-year deal, I'm all about OBJ. I'm with you on that one. No doubt about it. Somebody's name is actually Google account. That's fantastic. That's a good name. Chris, who just called in, says Flav is a casual. Literally made no sense, shaking my head. I mean, Flav gets a lot of hate in these chats, no doubt about it. And I hate piling on, but I just got to be real with you. I'm not with Flav on that one at all. I think we had a lot of weird circumstances. I think the 49ers made a lot of mistakes in the way that they've handled Trey Lance. That's why I don't think that they will do it again next year. But we'll see. I mean, they haven't made the right decision yet when it comes to the quarterback position. I don't have a lot of confidence in it, but hopefully Shanahan learns from his mistakes. That being said, y'all have a great night. Be blessed. And I will be back tomorrow with Grant, and then Behind Enemy Lines. Yes, Behind Enemy Lines. I will be back with a Chargers content creator to break it all down. Peace.